On today's episode, today, Friday, is your last day to vote for the yearly Mud Run Guide Best of OCR Awards. This will be our last episode of the podcast for 2017. We're going to talk with the third and fourth place women at World's Toughest 2017, Michelle Ford and Deanna Blegg. We announced the winners of the first ever Toughest Award presented by World's Toughest Podcast. And today, Friday, December 15th, is your last opportunity to vote in the Mud Run Guide Best of OCR Awards. I know I said it twice. This is the World's Toughest Podcast. Welcome to the World's Toughest Podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's World's Toughest Mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the World's Toughest Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to World's Toughest Podcast. I am so happy you are here. What a year. I have been running OCRs and Tough Mudders since 2012, and 2017 has been my favorite year doing these. By far. It's not even close. Thank you for an amazing year. Before we start, my name is Will Hicks. You can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at @TheWillHicks or on Instagram at WillHicks. I have posted more pictures on Instagram in the last 7 days than I have in the last 7 years. You're welcome, Adam Quitgo and Spartan Baby. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can leave a review on iTunes and I will read it on a future episode. By the way, we have more 5-star reviews, 5 stars reviews, than any other OCR podcast on iTunes. So, congratulations on that. Thank you very much. In the US, we are tied with ORM in total reviews, but going worldwide, we are number one by far. I sincerely thank you for that. Now that we've caught ORM, the only one really in front of us is the Spartan podcast, but it's not really an OCR podcast. Spartan Up is an OCR podcast like Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Die Hard is Christmas adjacent. Spartan Up is OCR adjacent. They have 500 something reviews right now. They're good reviews. They're the best reviews money can buy. But they've only had about 15 in the past year. We have received 80 plus reviews just in the US in the last 10 months. So we'll catch them eventually, but I'm not going to stress out about it. Thank you for those reviews on iTunes, both US and outside the US. You guys outside the US are awesome. I have gotten to meet a lot of great people from Canada, the UK, and Ireland this year. My tent at World's Toughest Mudder was literally next door to the Ireland national team. Ronan, Tex, Jacinta, and the crew. Oh, Australia. Deanna Blegg and Turbo. I am looking at going to your Toughest Mudder in Australia next year, mates. I'm off track. I love the Tough Mudder international community. If you would like to be a part of the show, leave a review on iTunes and I will read it on a future episode. This episode is going live today on Friday, December 15th. This is your last day to vote for World's Toughest Podcast on mudrunguide.com. Go to mudrunguide.com, click the big Vote Now banner, and scroll way down. Best OCR Podcast is the last category, and World's Toughest Podcast is the last line item on the entire ballot. Thank you for your vote. I mentioned in the teaser that this is the last episode of 2017. We are going to take a little break for Christmas and the New Year. We will be back with all new episodes in 2018, late January or early February. If Team HQ does something crazy, in January or over Christmas, then I might have to come back early and talk about it. But we're going to take a break from new episodes for a while. I'll still be around on Twitter. And I forgot to mention, if you would like a weekly email from me, even during the break, text the word tough to the number 22828. That's tough to the number 22828. I'll still be doing a weekly email over the holidays if you would like to hear from me that way. If you're on my list already, be sure to check your spam folder. Make sure your filters aren't catching the email. You should have been receiving an email from me the last few Mondays, last month worth of Mondays or so. Let's talk about the Toughest Award presented by World's Toughest Podcast and announce our winners. First, a little bit about the award. This is the first year of the Toughest Award. This is the only award presented to Tough Mudder athletes that is not presented by, sponsored by, or overseen by Tough Mudder headquarters. The 10 finalists, 5 men and 5 women, were selected by myself on behalf of World's Toughest Podcast. They were voted on by a panel of 6 well-known members of the WTM community, 3 men and 3 women. They include elite athletes, leaders in the World's Toughest community, and members of the OCR media. World's Toughest Podcast and myself do not vote, except to break a tie. The prize includes a trophy for your house, your name immortalized on the perpetual trophy that will include your name and the names of all future winners on display in the World's Toughest Podcast offices, and eternal bragging rights. Also, if you're in San Diego, I'll take you and your family to a Padres game with all the popcorn and peanuts you can eat. Because that's what elite athletes like, all you can eat popcorn and peanuts. Let's talk about the 10 finalists, and then we'll announce the winners. I'm going to briefly talk about each of their 2017 Tough Mudder results, but to get a full list of all their race results for the year, you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. The 5 male finalists are Ryan Atkins, Trevor Sykos, Mark James, Robert Killian, Hunter McIntyre. Ryan Atkins had another great year. He won all 4 Toughest Mudders he ran. He won the Toughest Mudder Series. He won the Holy Grail Leaderboard, and he won World's Toughest Mudder for the 5th straight time with a record 110 miles. And there's more. Check out our Facebook page. A strong year, even for Atkins. Trevor Sykos. Trevor won America's Toughest Mudder Northeast, held in Philadelphia. He was the defending champion at World's Toughest Mudder this year and finished in 3rd with 95 miles. Sykos has the longest streak of individual podium finishes in World's Toughest Mudder history, including 1st place in 2016. Trevor has been on the podium the last 4 years as an individual. No one else has done that. Mark James. Mark was one of 2 men to run all 6 Toughest Mudder races this year in the US, Canada, and the UK. He finished in 2nd place on the Holy Grail Leaderboard behind only Ryan Atkins. He ran 15 competitive Tough Mudder events this year and finished 1st in his 50-plus age group 9 times. Robert Killian. Killian won Tougher Mudder Colorado and finished 2nd at World's Toughest Mudder behind only Ryan Atkins. Killian earned that 2nd place with 105 miles, the best 2nd place finish in WTM history, and strong enough to win World's Toughest Mudder any year except this year and last year. Hunter McIntyre. McIntyre ran 4 Tough Mudder races and finished 1st in all of them, including Tough Mudder X and the Tougher Mudder Championship race. He is the only man to beat Ryan Atkins at a Tough Mudder race this year, and he did it twice. Again, for all the finalist race results, go to facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. The 5 female finalists are Deanna Braz, Rhea Coble, Nicole Miracle, Allison Ty, Lindsay Webster. Deanna Braz. Deanna ran more competitive events than any other woman, 14. She had more Tougher Mudder podium finishes, 7, than anyone else, man or woman, including 4 first places. She also finished 2nd on the Holy Grail Leaderboard behind only Allison Ty. Rhea Coble. Rhea ran 3 Tough Mudder competitive races this year and finished first or second at all of them. She had the best performance by a woman at World's Toughest Mudder ever, with 90 miles in 23 hours and 47 minutes. Those 90 miles tie her with Amelia Boone for most miles by a woman at a World's Toughest Mudder. She was also the first person, man or woman, to win World's Toughest Mudder wire to wire from sprint lap to 24-hour finish. Nicole Miracle. Nicole only ran 2 Tough Mudder races this year, but she dominated both of them, finishing first at both the Tougher Mudder Regional Final in Las Vegas and first in the Tougher Mudder Championship race in SoCal. She's the only woman to beat Rhea Coble at a Tough Mudder race this year, and she did it twice. Allison Ty. Allison ran 5 of the 6 toughest Mudder races this year, finishing on the podium every time, including 2 first-place finishes in Philly and Chicago. She finished first in the Toughest Mudder Series. She also finished in first on the Women's Holy Grail Leaderboard and third overall, behind only Ryan Atkins and Mark James. She finished in second at World's Toughest Mudder with 85 miles in 24:40, the third best performance by a woman at World's Toughest Mudder ever. Lindsay Webster. Lindsay won every Toughest Mudder she ran, finishing 3:43. She tied Allison Ty for the Toughest Mudder Series win with 120 miles, finishing in second only due to Allison's faster time. She finished in third on the Holy Grail Leaderboard and in 6th at World's Toughest Mudder. And now, the winners. For the men, the 2017 Toughest Award presented by World's Toughest Podcast goes to Ryan Atkins. For the women, the 2017 Toughest Award presented by World's Toughest Podcast goes to Allison Ty. Congratulations, Ryan and Allison. I will get in touch with you about your prizes. Well done, Ryan Atkins and Allison Ty. Before we talk with Michelle Ford and Deanna Blegg, let's read some iTunes reviews. First review is from Canada. Canada, coming in strong past few weeks. From Dave B. Fit. Dave writes, 5 stars. Been listening since episode 1 and love your style. I gleaned much info to help me get to 55 miles at my first WTM this year. Here's to many more episodes and to see you in Atlanta next year. Thank you, Dave. I like your style too. Congratulations on your 55 miles. You earn your brown bib after you finish 50 miles. Some people like to set 55 miles as their goal for World's Toughest. They call it going for their dirty brown bib. Well done, Dave. Next review is from the U.S., from Aries the 5th. Aries writes, solid podcast, 4 stars. But Aries was being clever. They actually rated us 5 stars. You're doing a great job, Will. Keep up the good work, and thanks for keeping everyone informed on the latest from TMHQ. Makes following all the changes to events super easy. I just wanted to hear you say something other than 5 stars. 5 stars. Yeah, I'll say whatever you write, Aries, as long as you rate us 5 stars. That's not true. I have had less than 5-star reviews before, and I read them. I had a 4-star and I had a 3-star earlier this year. That's all right. Next review is from Bubbler09. Bubbler writes, it's my favorite. 5 stars. Bubbler, this is very nice. This podcast is the reason I returned to Tough Mudder and the reason I'll be participating in Toughest Mudder next year and hopefully World's Toughest Mudder. I love the inspirational stories, interviews with elites, race previews, and I even love Will. The best podcast to listen to while training for your next Tough Mudder. Best episode, in my humble opinion, How Not to Die at World's Toughest Mudder with Molly Kenneth and Jason Nicholson. Thank you, Bubbler. That means a lot to me. I am glad you found your way back, and I hope to see you at a Toughest or World's Toughest next year. Look for me. Last review is from This Podcast is Awesome. They write, Good stuff. 5 stars. This is a great podcast that fueled my motivation to prep for WTM 2017. Keep up the good work. That's awesome, man. Well done. How did you do? Let me know. willhicks@gmail.com. Okay, we have time for one more. Kate Ritter writes, 5 stars. 5 stars. And she used emoji stars to do it somehow. Good on you, Kate. Kate writes, 5 stars. Hey, Will, remember that time I said I'd never listen to your podcast because I don't run Tough Mudders? Well, now Tough Mudder is one of my favorite events. Great show, tons of good information, and thanks for making me laugh. That's okay, Kate, as I am used to ladies laughing at me. Kate is actually Caitlin. She's the co-host of M. Stefano Running. If you're like, that sounds familiar, Mike Stefano was the guest in our last episode. He's got some year-end stuff coming out soon on his podcast. You should check it out. The M. Stefano Running Podcast. Caitlin, I am glad you finally ran Tough Mudder, and I am looking forward to meeting you at Toughest Mudder Boston, and then seeing you again at World's Toughest Mudder in Atlanta. If you would like to be a part of the show, like Caitlin, this podcast is awesome, Bubbler09, Aries the 5th, and Dave B. Fit, you can leave a review too. Just do what they did and open the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone and search for Tough Mudder. We're the first one that pops up. Click our logo and scroll way down to click on Write a Review. If you're looking for a Christmas present for me, that's all I'm looking for. A nice review from you. Yes, you. I see you. No, I won't say your name. Not until you leave a review for the podcast. Last thing before we talk to Michelle Ford and Deanna Blegg. Today, Friday, December 15th, is the last day to vote in the Mud Run Guide Best of OCR Awards. World's Toughest Podcast is up for Best OCR Podcast. You can vote right now. It'll take you literally 2 minutes. Go to mudrunguide.com, click Vote Now, big banner at the top of the page, and scroll way down to the bottom. We're the last line. World's Toughest Podcast. Email me after you vote, and I will thank you personally. I sincerely appreciate it. So, if you're looking for a present for me for Christmas, 2 things. A review on iTunes and a vote for Best OCR Podcast. Come on, man, that's the cheapest present you're going to find. Stay tuned after the interviews. I want to talk for another minute about the year we just had. It was great. Just a great year for Tough Mudder and for me personally. It's time to talk with Michelle Ford and Deanna Blegg. Let's go to the phones. Michelle Ford, congratulations on your 3rd place finish at World's Toughest 2017.
Oh, well, thank you.
You ran 80 miles for that 3rd place. How did you feel about your race?
I have to say that it was almost a perfectly executed race, and I hit all my goals. So, looking back, I can see where I've definitely made a few mistakes and where I would fix stuff for the future. But overall, I'm pretty darn stoked about the outcome for sure.
Tell me about that. A perfectly executed race. What went right for you?
I'm notoriously a really slow starter to most races, and in this race in particular, everyone went out like bats out of hell, like so fast. And I just had to sort of remind myself to, we've got 24 hours for this race. So I just went off slow, feeling really, really good. And then the 25 miles came around, and I said to my pit crew, guys, I still feel super good. Like, this is, weird. I never had stomach issues. And continuing into the night, I had one little low spot around midnight, I think probably like just before. I think I was stressing about the first cliff, and it got a little dark. But and even at midnight when I was coming into the 50-mile mark, I was like, guys, I still feel super good. And I was able to continue eating, and I didn't deal with any cold issues. I had a minor aches and pains here, but I just didn't have too many problems, which was a huge help.
Why do you think everything went so good for you? Was it just good training? Did you good tapering the weeks before?
I think I trained really smart, and I'm not necessarily just tapering the week before. I got a run coach for this race in particular, and he sort of, reeled me in a little bit from, all the championship races that were going on that time of year. And so I raced a whole heck of a lot less the 12 weeks leading into the race. And then he had me taper really well. And everything just came together. So I just felt super healthy and ready to go that week leading into the race, and decided to go to Vegas a day earlier than I would have in the past, and just have an extra day to relax. And I think a little bit of everything kind of helped have such a good week leading into the race.
You want to give a shout out to your running coach?
His name is David Roche. He's also Amelia Boone's coach and Nicole Miracle's coach. He's also known to be quite the excellent 100-miler coach as well. So he'd been coaching my husband for about 2 years, so I kind of turned to him for a little bit of help. And it was probably, I think, a key component of why I ended up running pretty strongly throughout the race.
Tell me about the start of the race. You said you came out a little slow, or slower than the rest of the field. How did the start of the race go for you?
I waited until probably the last 3 minutes before I headed to the start line. I had set up my pit pretty close, like right along the side of the fence of the pit area. So I was able to just kind of weasel through and then get to that start line. So I kind of just hung out and sat in the shade and just try to keep that heart rate really low. And I knew from past experiences that everyone was just going to go super fast. But I really was not expecting these girls to go out as fast as they did. I had raced most of them in Whistler, and I swear they went out faster than they did in the toughest in Whistler. And just kind of had to keep my own race. And I had a plan with my pit crew that I wasn't going to be too concerned about my placing until about 2 a.m. So I just sort of kept my head on and slow and steady as it goes.
Did you get nervous that first 12 or 14 hours, seeing all these rabbits in front of you?
No, not really. And again, I think because it's sort of, I had no expectations going into this race, and I felt like I had no pressure. Like no one really knew who I was. And I feel pretty confident that I'm a good, strong finisher. So I think that as long as I continue to feel good, I knew I could sort of slowly start picking people off. And as midnight rolled around, I think I was slowly moving in from 20th position into like 6th and 5th position. Just.
You said you had a hard moment at midnight or about midnight. What happened at midnight?
I think it started to get a bit cold, so more people were off the course than they had been previously. And I was trying my best to make as many friends on course as possible and chat around with people. It just kind of helps make those laps go by faster and not be so boring. And I think on that midnight lap, no one was around, and they had just added that lap. The extra midnight loop, so the climb up to the ladder of hell and then the cliff. And I think that's probably the only time in the race that I got really tired, and I started to be like, this is so silly. 24 hours is just crazy. Like, why can't the race just be over at 12 hours? And I didn't see anyone in course. And then when I came in through the pit, I told my crew, like, guys, it was super lonely out there. And then after that, my girls were just out on course every single lap from that point on at like 4 different sections, just making sure they cheered me on and helped through that. And then a couple hours later, more racers got back on course after they had a little nap and got ready to get going to finish the 24 hours.
So your pit crew went out there to kind of like be a cheering section for you as you passed them?
Yeah, so they kind of went out there. I knew that I wasn't the fastest girl out there, but I knew if I could be efficient in the pit, it would help a lot. I was hoping, for 16 to 20 laps-ish. And if you spend 2 minutes in the pit each time, you're looking at losing close to an hour. So they were out there to not only cheer me on, but, to find out what I was going to need when I came in through the pit and make sure everything was ready. And they were just like a NASCAR, like all 3 of them were on me. I pretty much just stood there with my arms up, and as they literally shoved stuff in my mouth or ripped off my wetsuit and then put on another wetsuit. Or, at one point we had a little bit of a trouble where I went out without my bib and got almost to Everest before I realized I left my bib. So then I had to run back to the start and then get my bib and then put it back on. But apart from that, it was they were amazing.
You said you weren't planning for the race to begin until 2 a.m. What was your status at 2 a.m.? Where were you at?
At 2 a.m., I was in 5th place. So, I had a sneaking suspicion that that's where I was. I was either in 6th or 5th. I think Deanna Blegg and I were playing. At one point, she was ahead of me, and I guess I passed her in the pit area maybe. And then she was only about 60 seconds behind me coming out of lap 9. I would have been in 5th then at 2 a.m.
So when you see her in 5th place, what is your thought process? Do you think, okay, I can catch 4th, I can catch 3rd, or is it just, what do you think as far as the race at that point?
There's still so much left of that race. And I do know that, so much can change just in the last 2 to 4 hours of the race. I knew that I was gaining on 4th. So at that point, I was just concerned on catching 4th. But to be honest, I didn't think that the podium was even close to something I could catch, just because I knew at that point those girls were about an hour ahead of me. Well, Rhea was 3.5 hours ahead of me. And so I was just going to worry about what was in front of me and then go from there and just kind of sort of chip away at getting a little bit faster each lap.
When did you know, or when did you think you had a shot at the podium?
I came in from lap 13, and Allie's husband, John, was there, and he had his little clipboard out, and he was letting me know what was going on. And he was, listen, I'm not sure where 4th is, but Lindsay's only 20 minutes ahead of you, and she's slowing down. I think you can catch her. And I was like, that was kind of gave me a bit of a boost. I was like, wasn't really expecting that. I hadn't heard at that point that she'd been slowing down for a little while. And so I knew I had 3 laps left, and I was like, okay, if I can chip away and then just put 10 minutes on her in each lap, I'll probably catch her by the last lap. But I ended up catching her on lap 14 at the Funky Monkey Poundy a lot sooner than I had anticipated.
Allie is Allison Ty, who finished in 2nd place right ahead of you. It might be a good thing you didn't catch her. It might have caused some drama in the Ty household if he's helping you out.
Well, Allie and I are pals, so I think at the end of the day, I think that we get asked this quite a bit, actually, in terms of how competitive we are with each other. But at the end of the day, we are just so happy for each other on whomever has a great race. I think that we kind of leave the competitiveness sort of on the course, but that's about as far as it gets in terms of competition, I think. How did
it feel when you crossed the finish line, 3rd place?
It was surreal for sure. It was, my biggest goal really was to run for 24 hours straight. And I accomplished that. I only sat down once to switch my shoes just towards the end. And I think I was almost more excited I was pretty excited about the fact that despite only doing 80 miles, my watch had said 95 miles, and I was only 5 miles away from getting that kind of, even if it wouldn't have counted for the prize money, but getting to that 100-mile mark. Even that, just like, I was pretty excited about the 95 miles and the 24 hours of running, almost more than the 3rd place finish, I think.
What's the furthest you've run before this weekend?
So I had 2 years ago, I had tried to run a 100-mile race and sort of failed miserably, and ended up walking, I think, from 30 miles onwards, and was about to drop out of the race at mile 89, or I guess it would have been mile 80. And then the course marshal had told me they actually cut off the rest of the course, and that's to just go to the finish line. And so I hobbled 9 miles to the finish line. So I did that in like 29 hours. I did 89 miles, with the majority of it walking. So that was a huge learning curve for me. And I couldn't help but have a bit of nerves that something similar might happen at World's Toughest. But also I took my training a lot different than that race too. So it was to be able to run for 24 hours came out of that race. That I just wanted to be able to know that I could do that and not walk entirely.
Tell me about the obstacles. You mentioned that you were a little nervous heading to the cliff.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that if you ask most people, generally they'll sort of kind of say the same thing. Like, I'm not particularly scared of heights, and I'm not scared of water. I think I'm mostly scared of getting hurt on the landing. But I don't know why I'm so scared of it. 2 years ago, I tried to do World's Toughest, but dropped out quite early onto the race due to injury. And Allie and I had spent a few weeks going to the aquatic center trying to practice off the platform. And I think that actually made it worse going into the 2015 race because then I just got so psyched out and had built up this big thing about jumping off the cliff that I couldn't do it. And then this year I looked at it differently. Like this year I just didn't think about it and just had to deal with the fact that I had to jump off that cliff. So when I would approach it, I got nervous as heck and really didn't want to do it, but I didn't sit there too long. I was able to at least build up enough courage to just step off that ledge and count to 3 and just hope that it won't hurt too much hitting that water.
Do you walk to the edge and look down, or do you kind of stand back and then just walk straight off?
I definitely look down. It doesn't even really bother me so much. I think the adrenaline at that point can overtake the fear. So, I have a little routine where I just sort of get the okay, look down, and wave my arms in circles a couple times and then suck them to my legs and hopefully just drop like a nice pencil and not too crooked.
It's hard to describe to somebody who's never done that cliff jump that it's like there's this like a mental thing you have to physically get past. It's really, it's like nothing else in Tough Mudder that I've ever done.
Yeah, someone brought up the point that our bodies are designed to tell us to not jump off a cliff. Like, we are not made to jump off a cliff, so you're going against everything that you've been ingrained into your brain, told not to do. You have to do it. And I get it. Some people love cliff jumping and don't have an issue with it, but for the most of the general population, like jumping off a cliff is just wrong on so many levels of like brain stimulation and muscular stimulation that I think it becomes quite tricky to push that past that barrier.
What did you think of Kong Infinity?
I really struggled with it. I kind of kicked myself for not trying it more than the 2 times that I tried it. I found the ring's quite rubbery and wet, and I have pretty good grip strength until items are wet, and then once stuff is wet, I just can't hold on. I look forward to training to get stronger at it, and I hope that they keep it in the race because I think it's definitely sort of a make or break obstacle for people. And if you can hit the Kong, I think you could do pretty well in a race for sure, especially if you're kind of fighting for that podium position. But I ended up doing the penalty every single time. So,
how do you do with the electrical obstacles like Pandora's Box?
Oh, I was actually probably more nervous about the electrical obstacles than I was the cliff. 2 years ago, I really struggled with operation. I just felt it was just the worst thing ever. Every time I got zapped, it was just like terror striking my body. So much so that in Whistler, I took the penalty lap every single time in operation because I was so scared of getting zapped. So this year coming to Pandora's Box, I was really nervous. And I think this is kind of, everyone sort of said the same thing. It actually turned out to be a really pleasant obstacle. You sort of get down on this box. I was on a flat cement and there's water in there, but the electric cables weren't too low, and all you did was just like swim on your body. So it kind of gave you a time to like get that heart rate back down. You like slid really nicely, unlike rolling under the barbed wire in super sharp desert rocks. This was just nice and flat. So I kind of look forward to it every lap.
You said you had almost a perfect race. Is there anything you would have done differently looking back?
I probably would have pushed sooner or harder sooner. I feel like I finished the race with a lot left in the tank. And I think that I could have gone a little bit faster sooner. I also, in one lap, I had, it was one of my longest laps. I had the bib issue. So I think I lost about 10 minutes there. And on that same lap, they closed the cliff saying that the lights had broken. So they made us go do the penalty. But literally, as soon as we walked away from the cliff, they opened the cliff. And if I had just stayed at the cliff, I probably would have not lost that extra 5 minutes on the penalty. So that was 15, at least 15 minutes I lost there. I think those are sort of the 2 main things for sure.
It's weird to think that in a 24-hour race, you're looking back like I could have saved 15 minutes right here. That's
yeah. It's you don't really realize, like, sure, just 15. I mean, I had 2 laps that were almost 2 hours, whereas the rest of my laps were under an hour and 45 towards the end, if not under an hour 40. And I mean, those 30 minutes would have just put me, because if you think about it, if I had shaved off those 15 minutes on those 2 laps, I would have been 30 minutes closer to Allie, which in theory, Allie would have only been like 10 or 15 minutes ahead of me. And that, knowing that would have given me an extra little bit of push to try and catch her too. So you don't really think about that at the time, but now with that experience, I'll definitely take that into future races for sure.
It's interesting hearing you talk about Allie or Allison Ty. I don't know if I can call her Allie. I don't know if we're that close.
She always introduces herself as Allie, and so I just call her that from now on.
At Toughest Mudder Whistler, you finished second. She finished third. At World's Toughest this year, she finished second. You finished third. And you both live in Western Canada. Do you guys see each other a lot? Do you train together?
I wish we saw each other more. I mean, we live in the same. Well, I just moved to north of Vancouver in a town called Squamish, and she lives in Vancouver still. I even worked at her gym for about 6 months until I moved to Squamish. And then unfortunately, we didn't see each other enough. And we always make plans to go train together. But, she has this new business and she's got kids and I have my own business. So our schedules never quite lined up. And we also train very differently too. Like my biggest weakness is running. So I spend a lot of time running and she already runs way faster than me. So she's not, you'd think it'd be good to run with someone faster than me, but she almost runs too faster than me. So I'm focusing on that. And, when we travel to the same races, we're always hanging out and having dinner together and stuff.
Michelle, what about 2018? What are your plans for Toughest Mudder, World's Toughest Mudder?
So I would generally usually takes like a week to digest rather, and figure out what to do. But I was really quick to decide I want to go to Atlanta. So I registered almost immediately, or I at least decided before I crossed the finish line that I would be racing next year. So I signed up for one of the toughest, and I have good intentions to go to Atlanta. I'm also super curious in trying some Tough Mudder X because those are kind of guilty pleasures for me.
Is that kind of your strength? You mentioned you have CrossFit later.
Yeah, they are definitely a little bit of a secret weapon. Unfortunately, I don't have the speed so that it doesn't necessarily translate well into shorter, longer, like those short, long races. But I'd be pretty excited to test them out in like a Tough Mudder X for sure, where, you're only running 400 meters between every sort of obstacle / CrossFit movement.
You mentioned that this year a lot of people didn't know who you were out there. Finishing on the podium next year in Atlanta, everyone's going to know your name. Will that change the race for you?
It will definitely mentally be a little bit tougher. I was really late to register for World's Toughest this year, so I wasn't even on the elite contenders list until. I was hoping once I got to registration, at least I would be. So my name wasn't even in any of the publications or write-ups about who's racing and who are the elite contenders. So unfortunately, I don't think I can avoid that for 2018. Although I still would have to come top 3 in the toughest, and who knows who will show up the toughest in the next season. So I don't know. Yeah, it definitely will change things a bit. It's really nice going under the radar and no one really knowing who you are.
That was kind of Stephanie Bishop's trick 2 years ago. She signed up a week before and then won the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which toughest are you going to run?
I think Texas. I love any excuse to go to Texas. I just love it. I love cowboy country. I don't know why. I think my husband and I will make a trip out of it and go rock climbing in New Mexico afterwards or something.
Why do you like cowboys so much?
I don't know. It's a recent fascination. I'm really into Gold Rush and Wild Wild West. I'm a super nerd and watch really cheesy Wild West TV shows and read books on the Wild West culture and settlements, especially in British Columbia where I live. That's the start of the Gold Rush up into the Klondike. So I'm nerding out hard and some of a book about the history of there right now.
If you go to the right tourist place, you can still pan for gold,
I know that we actually, right where I live, there's an old mine that you can go panning for gold.
That's fun. Michelle, is there anything else I should ask you about? I feel like this is the first time we've ever talked.
It is the first time we've ever talked. It's so nice to hear your voice through my headset versus through my car stereo. You know what?
I wanted to mention, you left me a very nice review on the Facebook page. That was very kind of you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. It's always a pleasure. I'm a firm believer that, not necessarily with podcasts, but I do feel like people are always so quick to leave bad reviews. So I try my best to only ever leave good reviews for people.
Michelle Ford, any last thoughts on a World's Toughest Mudder 2017?
It was an awesome event, and I'm super happy that I got to be part of it. And can't thank my crew enough again for being there because they were rock stars. And I look forward to getting to know the Tough Mudder series a little bit more this year, I think, or 2018. I keep thinking it's 2018 already.
Michelle Ford, thanks much.
Yeah, no problem. So great to meet you, Will.
Deanna, congratulations on World's Toughest 2017.
Thanks so much, Will. It's been awesome being out there.
You ran 80 miles yesterday. How do you feel?
I feel fantastic. I've had a good sleep. My body's woken up feeling refreshed. I'm walking normally. No aches, no pains, no blisters, nothing. It's great.
That's amazing. What's your secret?
Vegetables.
Vegetables? Are you a vegetarian?
Since having cancer, I was advised when I went to see a doctor because I didn't want to ever have chemo ever again, and she advised me to get off animal products. So I've pretty much done that since, and it's working for me.
And health-wise, and you were able to fuel 80 miles of World's Toughest just on vegetables or non-animal products?
Yeah, I don't eat processed food either, so it's all made from scratch. It's very time-consuming, but yeah, I've made it from scratch, and it's fueled me.
Nutrition is one of the areas that a lot of people, even elite runners, struggle with. Like if they always say, if I can get my nutrition dialed in, then that's like taking it to the next level. Mm-hmm. That's kind of your secret. Yeah,
it's we expect so much from our body, but so many people put in the wrong things to fuel it, and it'll last for 6 hours or 8 hours, but 24 hours, it can't live on crap for 24 hours, especially when you're demanding so much from it. So, I just fed it good food, and my body responded really well. I had no cramping. This is the first year I had no cramping at all in a World's Toughest Mudder.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is 2017. 2016, you took off. In 2015 and before, you'd raced almost every year.
Yep.
How does it feel to be back after missing a year?
I felt amazing to be back around the crowd, back around the love. World's Toughest Mudder is so special, and I think that's what brings people to it. There's so much love out there for everyone, and it was so nice to feel that on the course.
What was the reaction from the community when they saw you out there, or when they saw your name, or just what was it like? What did they say, or how'd that go? Pretty much everyone I passed wished me well, or thanked me for the Blegg mitts. It was great seeing them out on course because, we get the orders in, but we never actually see them in action. So to have them, so many out on course and people thanking me for them, and yeah, it's pretty cool. We've talked about the Blegg mitts before. I've said they're the best glove for World's Toughest Mudder. Everyone always asks, what kind of gloves should I buy? The only mitts I recommend are the Blegg mitts. And you're the Blegg of Blegg mitts, obviously. How many pairs do you think you saw out there? Hundreds? Hundreds, yeah, for sure, hundreds. And it was pretty cool. And also, when you make a product, you like they work for me, but I'm not sure if they work for everyone. But just to have all that feedback, and it just reinforces that I'm doing the right thing. They're a good product, and. This sounds like a commercial for Blegg mitts, but they're not just for World's Toughest. Like, you can buy them for any race you're going to where it's going to be cold. Yeah. So you can get your hand in and out. You can use bare skin on the obstacles, which is really the only solution. Mm-hmm. People have been trying to use gloves on obstacles since obstacle course races started, and they just don't work. They don't work. You've got to use your bare hands, and with the Blegg mitts, you can do that and then keep your hands warm also. Also for photography as well. So we're out somewhere in minus temperatures, and to have them, with your camera, and you can get your hands out, take your photos, and sort of put your hands back in. There's so many uses. Even running, like I just put hand warmers in them and go running with them as well. So that's great. Cool. Any other applications you've heard of? People working in markets where there's cold, like in ice storage boxes and things like that. So they can pull their hands in and out. Oh, like going to the grocery store or the cold storage. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So what did you think of the course this weekend? It was a tough course. There was lots of elevation, some gritty obstacles in there. I was no good on all the hanging obstacles, all the grip strength stuff. And the penalties were pretty long. And I know I've run a lot more than just 5 miles per lap. But I'm guessing I was about a 7 mile lapper.
But the course was good, and it's important they put grip strength stuff in because it's not a running race, it's an obstacle race. So, that's part of it. And the women that can do those obstacles, it's to their advantage. So I know what I need to focus on.
So we'll see you again in 2018?
I'd like to say yes. Yeah. All going well, yes.
I heard that one of the penalties they made longer overnight. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I felt that.
What are your thoughts on that, like changing the course mid-race?
I'm okay with it. That penalty was actually quicker than doing the obstacle. So I felt like a bit of a cheat doing it. We missed out on a water crossing and we got out at the same time the people that did the obstacle. So it was a kind of a bit of an unfair advantage. And making it longer just made it feel like I was doing more of a penalty, which was probably appropriate.
You talked about all the competition out there. What do you think of the elite women that have, kind of since 2 years ago, your last race, there's been a kind of a crop of strong women that have come up. What do you think about the field?
I think the field of women was fantastic. It's great that there's more women giving this a go. And it was great to be amongst them, and it was great to finish up there amongst them as well because there's some really respectable athletes there, and to place in amongst them, that's pretty cool. Like I'm nearly double most of the girls' age except for Alison, but all the other girls are in their 20s. So to be mixing it up with them at age 48, I couldn't be prouder.
And you did well. You finished in front of more than 1,000 men, probably.
Yeah, I think I was 14th in the men's.
14th overall?
Yeah. That's
amazing.
I was pretty happy with that too, yeah.
What do you think about as far as age goes, so I was talking to someone this weekend and they said that once you had years and years to build up a base, it actually can make you a stronger runner where you have an advantage over some of maybe the 20-year-olds that, they're young, but they don't have that base of years of running built up. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's anything to that? Look,
with age, certainly that time on your feet, the time in your legs has an advantage. But there's also, certainly with age as well, the recovery gets slower. I don't let age be my barrier though. Like I hear that your recovery gets slower and I hear that you start degenerating after 45, whatever. But I don't ever use that as that's going to happen to me. I just keep trying to get the best and perform the best that I can. And, you'll never hear me say, I'm old or, use my age as an excuse because it's not. I am who I am and I'll achieve what I can from my body despite. But it does feel good to be this old, this age, and mixing it up with young, young supreme athletes. It's overwhelming.
We were talking about this off mic. You're such a strong athlete. You don't need to even look at the age group standings. That's not even a thing for you.
Yeah, no, I don't normally go into a race trying to win my age category. No, it's about how I perform within myself. Number one, it's how I perform in myself, and then to place, to rank well is just reinforcing.
Last week, Tough Mudder announced there's going to be a Toughest Mudder in Australia.
Yeah.
The 8-hour race.
Yep.
You're from Australia.
I am.
Will we see you there?
Yeah, I will be there. It's pretty exciting. I think 8 hours is fantastic and I'd love to give that a go. You can kind of hammer that one a bit quicker. Yeah.
It's kind of it's from midnight till 8 a.m.,
okay,
which can be the worst part of World's Toughest, or maybe the best part if that's what you enjoy. What do you think about that dark?
Yeah, the witching hours. It's a tough time for me, but once again, it's only you just do it. Like in a World's Toughest Mother, between 12 and 8, you've already done 12 hours, so it's tough. But if you're coming into it fresh, even though your body wants to sleep, like at least it's going to have more energy, so it can't be too bad. I'll let you know.
Do you have any last thoughts on World's Toughest 2017?
I think the organisers did a great job on the course. I think I think it was fantastic. Pit crew set up fantastic. Just the organisation. It seems a lot better than previous years. And I had a blast out there, and it was everything I wanted it to be, and more.
Deanna Blegg, thanks much.
Thanks so much, Will. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle Ford, Deanna Blegg. Well done. I am looking forward to seeing what those two do in 2018. But first, how was your 2017? What a year, right? What was the highlight of your 2017 Tough Mudder year? let me know at willhicks@gmail.com. Maybe you finally got to run World's Toughest Mudder for the first time. Maybe you hit your 10x headband or your 25 times headband. Did you get 50? Maybe you got 50 miles. Let me know about it. willhicks@gmail. For me, there were several highlights, but let me tell you about one of them. I had a few goals going into the year. 50 miles at World's Toughest Mudder and contender status, or 25 miles at a toughest mudder, were the two biggest ones. I ended up running 4 of the 6 toughest mudders. I knew I wouldn't get 25 miles at LA or Whistler. Both of those courses had crazy elevation, just ridiculous. I was just happy to be there and be running and having fun. At Atlanta, I had a chance to make 25, but my third lap was too slow, and by the time I finished my fourth lap, I hadn't left myself enough time to make 5 laps and 25 miles. So my last chance for the year to hit 25 miles was at the last toughest mudder of the year in Chicago. I try not to do that loser's math while I was running, where you're like, as long as my next lap isn't slower than this time, then I'll still have enough time. I just focused on running, and I hoped that the mileage would work itself out. So after 8 hours and change of running, in circles, in the dark, in Chicago, I was in sight of the finish line. And the whole last lap, you're looking at your watch, and you're like, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? And it's just, it wears on you. So I'm finally toward the end of the lap, and I see Kong. It's the last obstacle right before the finish line. I fail the obstacle. I fail Kong, so I'm doing the penalty. The penalty is a sandbag carry with a couple of loops. It's a little run with a sandbag, carrying a sandbag. And as I'm running this sandbag penalty, I hear the announcer say, 15 minutes to finish your last lap, Mudders. 15 minutes. And the finish line was like 50 feet past the end of this penalty. I was almost done. And that was the first time all night that I thought to myself, I'm going to make it. I'm really going to make it. I ditched my sandbag and I ran across the finish line. So emotional. There's something about wanting something and working for it and not knowing if you're going to get it, and then you get it and you earned it. Unless it involves my wife or my kids, I don't get emotional very often. But I was in tears for probably 15 minutes after that race, just letting it all out. Toughest Mudder Chicago was the highlight of my year. Just a great, great event for me personally. There were other high points, though. The first time, really every time, but the first time someone I didn't know told me that they liked the podcast. Thanks for doing the podcast. It was Dave Thanos at Toughest Mudder LA. Just a slap on the back and love the podcast as he ran past me, but it was great. Felt good. And that happened at every race I went to after that. You do not know how fulfilling and rewarding that feels. I spend a fair amount of time on the podcast, and I'm proud of it. And when you come up to me at a race and you say something like that, it is a drug. Heather Bodie and I were talking about this. Heather from the Overcome and Run podcast. We were talking about this the other day. It is the best feeling in the world when someone comes up to you at a race and lets you know they appreciate the work you do, putting out a podcast. I had a guy come up to me at the brunch after World's Toughest Mudder, and he was wearing his 50-mile bib, and he thanked me, and he said, I ran the miles, but you deserve some of the credit for me getting this. And just Tiffany Obb, she told me that Team Short Shorts they've had some nice things to say about the podcast contributing to their success also. And all of us know it's really not the case. Like, either you're going to run the miles or you're not going to run the miles. The podcast is a thing. You know, we all enjoy it. I enjoy making it. Hopefully you enjoy listening to it. But this podcast isn't going to make you run any further, run any faster. We both know that. But I appreciate the kind words, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it and it gave you some inspiration or some, for some of you some motivation. Or anyway, I know it's a podcast. I'm not, like Will Dean says, we're not curing cancer here. But I appreciate that you appreciate the podcast. I said before that I started this podcast for myself to keep me motivated and working out all year long so that I could hit 50 miles at World's Toughest Mudder. I ended up not being able to run World's Toughest last year. So that goal still stands. 50 miles of World's Toughest 2018. Here is to hitting our goals in 2018. What are your goals? What are your OCR goals, your fitness goals, your personal goals for 2018? Let me know. willhicks@gmail.com. I may read them in a future episode. What would you like to hear about on the podcast in 2018? Let me know that too. willhicks@gmail.com. And don't forget, go to mudrunguide.com and vote. If we win the whole thing, we'll do something special. Tell your friends. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. Go spend time with people you love. I will see you in 2018.